Welcome to the Beefy Boys Breakdown podcast. Only podcast out there breaking down every single fight on every single card. Episode 139 of the Beefy Boys Breakdown. We're recapping UFC Fight Night Aspinall Tybura from London. We're going to start with the main card this week. And, man, jerking the curtain, we got Davey Grant versus Daniel Marcos. And, man, I got to admit, I didn't realize Daniel Marcos was 14-0. I think it's only 2-0 in the UFC coming into this one, but that's nothing to laugh at.
Didn't realize he was 14-0. I mean, obviously, once I went to Tapology and kind of started looking through it beforehand, then I was made aware. But I kind of wondered why Davey Grant was a plus 115. And for people at home, we did a wild couple parlays where it was just pretty much anyone from the UK. We took Jacasey out of it and then added him back in one, I believe, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And if it was gonna hit, or it was gonna be something crazy, like we turned $5 into $1,000 or something crazy like that.
five into 1400 or five into 600 were the two.
Yeah, yeah, it was crazy. So we were definitely pulling for the Brits. We'll get to it. It didn't hit, but it was kind of just like a fun, like, throw shit at the wall, see if it sticks kind of parlay. Not necessarily like we're gonna really use all of our MMA knowledge and really trying to get these locks type of bet. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, and well for Marcos, here's why I think we were kind of back and forth on him. Right, is his win is against what is this guy's name? Simon Oliveira, who respectable win, not the best win, and then he has his
Yeah,
Contender Series win. Contender Series was a decision. The Oliveira win was a KO in the second, so that is nice. But I just thought Davey Grant, better history of guys he's fought.
oh yeah, better competition,
Fighting at
live
home.
dog for sure. Yeah, fighting at home, live dog. Now he is 37 years old. But I mean, he's a good bantamweight. Like, we'll get to how this decision shakes out. But like, even watching him at 37, it's not like you're like, oh, this guy's not UFC caliber. Like, he's legit.
Yeah, and what's odd is if you hear my scorecard, or once you hear my scorecard for this, it sounds like I should be rolling out a hill for Davey Grant. But I'm not going to do that. So let's get into it round by round.
Yeah, definitely, bro. Because there's a little kind of a controversial decision here. But that being said, I feel you because rounds 1 and 2 were like basically a coin flip. Now, I think a lot of people's coins was landing on Davey Grant, which is, I think there's something to be said for that.
I would agree.
But it wasn't like egregious. Round 1, like I alluded to, very close round. I liked Grant. I liked his activity, the calf kicks, the body kicks. The weird thing about rounds 1 and 2, neither fighter really had like a knockdown or even I don't think a takedown. It was just a lot of like exchanges that were
The
relatively even.
the most significant thing in the first 10 minutes of the fight was a scratch on Davey Grant's nose that was like bleeding profusely, but really wasn't like, if you saw the strike that cut him, it was like the glove like dragged across his nose, essentially like lacerating the skin, but like wasn't like it was an impact split or anything like that. Like there were no impactful strikes really. It was just like, and I will
Yeah,
say too, like that's going to be a impactful strike, quote unquote, because he's bleeding from it, right? So like damage, but it really wasn't that damaging, is my point.
yeah, I mean, fooled me live. I mean, I thought he busted his nose, just like watching on TV. But yeah, I mean, I like Grant's work in one. I mean, Marcos had some good calf kicks. They were essentially both calf kicking each other. And I literally have in my notes like no big moments for either fighter. So like I scored it for Grant, but as far as like, dying on the hill, like, it was pretty subjective, pretty, competitive. Not like, yeah, no fighter really like put a stamp on the round necessarily. I like Grant's work, but yeah,
And I think in strike numbers it was 16-12 for Grant. Now, granted, Marcos didn't land one head strike in the first round. I think it's also important
yeah.
for like narrative and like also activity. Davey Grant was the way more active guy. As close
Well,
as I
just
thought
for
it
like eye
was,
test as well.
yeah,
Like eye test live.
as close as I think it was statistically, because it was 16-13 or 16-14 in strikes landed. It was more so that Davey Grant was just, I thought, optically putting on a better show of a fight. I scored it to him. I thought it was close, and I thought it was close on like you're saying, like neither guy really did anything that was measurably impactful. So it's really hard to say that either guy's, getting ahead of the other.
For sure. How did the judges see round 1?
So two go Marcos, one judge goes Grant. This is also the judges Anders Olsen, Clemens Werner, and Cesare Wachowski. There we go.
Who the fuck is that guy? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
But yeah,
just all Europe judges.
just pretending like you're enjoying that Happy Dad.
It's pretty great. The
Oh yeah,
pineapple,
there you go.
honestly worst flavor too. Pineapple, like, which is crazy. Like, you'd think the sweetest fruit that you make drinks with for seltzers is the one you cannot fuck up. But Happy Dad found a way to make the best one lemon lime and the worst one pineapple, and it makes no sense. And I've had that answer from a lot of different people in Oklahoma when I bring them back. So they can't, like, don't look at me like I'm the one that's tasting them weird.
Did you see Schultz destroy
Oh
Steiny on
my
that
god, yes. Did I even?
unreleased podcast?
Did you listen to the? Did you listen to the unreleased one?
I not like the I like watched this YouTuber did like a breakdown of it, like narrowed it down to like 13 minutes, so I got a
Oh,
little
dude.
more like palatable. But
It was great. And honestly, like, I listened to it and he kept talking about how it was the worst. It wasn't the worst podcast for the first 20, 25 minutes. Then it stagnates because, like, the Nelk guys are like, oh, yeah, so, like, being a comedian, like, that's what you do. And he's like, are you guys going to ask me any fucking questions? Like, what's up with that? And, like, he could,
yeah,
like, the vibe Steiny gives off is always dog shit. I don't know if you ever watched the Nelk podcast, but, like, literally everyone talks shit to him because he's just, like, he, like, puts off this air of, like, confidence and, like asks like the most like asshole questions like what's the most expensive bottle of liquor you like to drink, like shit like that, where it's like, bro, that is the dog shit question. And then
yeah,
he
just
like
like a basic bitch. Now,
yeah, and then he
I'll
like
say,
and then he shines the clout. That's why people always hate him. So I was happy with Schultz taking him down.
for sure. I'm by no means like going to bat for Steiny, but like I used to do a lot of more of like interview style podcasts on my other channel, Dreadful Talk, and it can be a little awkward. Like, you can't be an expert in everything. And like, like if I don't necessarily, like if I'm not in that world, like, for example, like somebody that doesn't know anything about skateboarding or like the name, like of skateboard tricks, like if they're interviewing a skateboarder, like some basic bitch questions because like you're not in that world, but it's also like, then what are we doing here? So like I see both sides kind of. For sure, definitely some of my early podcasts, were pretty cringe. But also, I was a beginner doing it on an iPhone, not like getting paid a lot of money to do it with like celebrities and like a big time production setup. But off the rails a little bit here. We'll bring it back to this Grant Marcos fight. Round two, another close one. See. I'll be real. I'm a casual mark here because I gave it to Marcos for the quote unquote busted nose, and like as you alluded to in the lead up, like. Wasn't necessarily that. So, I mean, if I watched that, like, around with, like, context of knowing it was more of a scratch than, like, a busted nose, I may score it differently. But I lean Marcos in round two. Like, also, Marcos was moving forward more, had a little bit better pressure. But I'd be lying if I said it wasn't mainly the blood on Grant's face, like, casual caveman take there.
No, I feel it. I feel it. What really made me like go back and kind of look into what it was in the moment was that near the end of the round, I think 90 seconds to go or so, they flashed another statistic of like strike differentials, like where they had landed. And I knew that they had said in round one he didn't land any headshots, and he only had 2 landed at that point, and that was once Davey Grant was like already bleeding profusely. So I was like, wait, you mean to tell me that 2 punches like cracked him so squarely that I somehow missed that it busted his nose? And so I started thinking, and I was like, oh, like, he never got hit, like, flush. Like, that had to have just been, granted, a connection, but it couldn't have been one that, like, busted his nose. We would have obviously been like, oh, shit, we would have heard it, seen it, reacted to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and Grant, it might be like a Nate Diaz scar tissue thing. Like he's 37 years old, been fighting a long time, been in some wars. Like he probably bleeds a little easier than like a young, fresh prospect like Marcos. I think,
Exactly.
there's a lot of factors there.
Now,
so how'd you score the round, though?
So, okay, so check it out. So, I have that in my head with that last 90-second window going into it. And Grant honestly closed out the 90 seconds with, like, a couple nice flurries. Like, started it well, ended it well. I actually scored the round for him. No one agrees with me. That's probably a bad take, honestly. Maybe some Davey Grant glasses here. But I did think it was a super close round, and I think I can lawyer my way into him winning that round.
I think that's all fair. Like once again, neither guy had any moments where they're like, "Oh, he just took that round." Like,
yeah, but what's
like
crazy? What's crazy is significant strike numbers would tell you that Grant had 14 more in that round, which I know really means nothing because of the strikes that are being landed. But I'm just saying, like, the numbers are crazy. Like, he wins every statistical category in this fight. Every control,
Yeah.
takedowns, takedown defense, literally won every category. So it's just crazy to think in a point fighting matchup that, like, he doesn't essentially win on, like, the point measurables.
No, I think those are all fair points. I don't think any of that's too far out of bounds. Now, round three, from like a one championship scoring type of perspective, like round three is where like Davey Grant like won the fight, both on my scorecard, but also just like playground rules, like who won this fight. Like Davey Grant in round three really like widened the margin. Each round is scored individually, and it's not like cumulative like one championship, but like this is one championship. Davey Grant wins all day, every day. Really kind of pulled away in round three. Looked great.
Actually,
Punches to the body. I don't know where that was. If he would have gone to the body the whole fight, I mean, he would have won like quite handedly. Those were like great body shots.
He could have insured himself the first round by just going to the body work early.
Totally agree with that. Volume activity. Now, when Marcos attempted the Yair TKO,
oh yeah,
didn't land.
Bisping was loving it.
Loving it. Like, it was entertaining. I mean, it didn't land, but just to know Marcos has like that kind of bag, like he has that in his arsenal. Like I said, didn't land, So I mean, you don't want to give a guy too much credit for like essentially whiffing, but like just to throw that out there, put that on tape, like have guys thinking about it, have guys worrying about it. Also, like kind of showcasing your own kind of skill set and athleticism. I thought it was pretty sweet. That being said, yeah, Grant easily won round three. It was the only round that really wasn't close. And so I had it 29-28 Grant on my scorecard. You have 30-27 Grant?
Yeah, which is why I said at the start, like, sounds like I should be rolling a hill out for him, but I understand that one is a coin flip, two I'm the one arguing off, like, up the hill on, and then three I think is the clear Davey Grant round. So I see a 29-28 for Marcos. I really do. I even have in my notes maybe a split decision. And then when it was a split to Marcos, I was like, that almost feels like a robbery. Because Davey Grant just fought a better fight. Just, it's clear now.
Yeah, and I think Marcos, like, sometimes fighters, like, kind of snitch on themselves in, like, a bad decision. And, like, I think Marcos was, like, legitimately shocked that he won that. So I think between those two, they know who got the better of who.
And I wonder if it's like a Dana job too, where Dana's like, well, you're not getting like an easy or like a workup fight. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think you beat Grant here, so now you got to run it back with someone of the same level. Like, you don't get the top 15 shot. Dana's known for doing stuff like that.
Yeah, and I mean, Marcos is just another like awesome bantamweight prospect that's outside the top 15. I mean, Davey Grant's about as high level of a fight you can get with an unranked guy. I mean, there's other names, but it's like in that tier, that like
15 to 20.
20.
Yeah, 16 to 20,
type of range. And I mean, it's going to go down on paper as a great win for Marcos, but those of us that actually watched it and don't look at Tapology in 2 years, I mean, that's what I'm saying. That's one of those wins where like 2 years in Tapology, you're like, oh, Marcos beat Davey Grant. That's a good win, but not necessarily the best performance.
Well, it's one where I got to remind myself, like, hey, I scored that fight 30-27 to Grant. Like, in no way, shape, or form did Marcos win that fight on my card.
No, for sure, bro. But I mean, advances to 15-0, nothing to sneeze at. I mean, he's got to be, scratching on the back end of the top 15. But I mean, there's a million guys, that you can say that about in bantamweight. So I don't think we necessarily got to spend time matchmaking just because, like, in bantamweight, you kind of can't go wrong. Like, you kind of can't. So, I mean, whoever they give him next, I think if he would have actually, like, knocked out Davey Grant or something, you're like, okay, for sure, top 15. But with kind of an iffy split decision, it's like, we'll see what happens next. And on that note, we can keep it pushing. Because this next guy, I actually want to, like, I think this next guy
needs a top 15 matchup.
For sure. Kind of, honestly, like a very similar matchmaking. We got Leroy Murphy minus 145, undefeated with a draw, taking on Josh Coleybaugh, who is actually younger than Leroy Murphy. And I'll be real, I always kind of sleep on Coleybaug's record. I mean, he's 11-1-1. Like, that's a pretty damn good record. Very good record.
Especially when you look at who he's fought.
Plus 125 dog. Yeah. And I think I want to say that if I'm tripping, but was the loss up at lightweight? I think on his debut, I think his UFC debut at lightweight was his only UFC loss, his only loss period.
Against Jalen Turner, no less.
Yeah. So no salt there, like no shame in that, at all. Yeah. So Coley Bell, that being said, it's going to be about where the nice things to say about Coley Bell end, if we're being honest.
Well, I agree with you, but I do want to preface that with this is that, and I think I might have put this in the group chat. I actually don't think I did. I followed Lerone Murphy on Instagram for like 2 years now because I remember whenever he fought Ricardo Ramos and KO'd him, I was like, damn, this dude's a beast. I followed him. If you look at who he's fought in the UFC, man, like this guy has fought. He's fought Zabira Tukagov. He's fought Ricardo Ramos, Douglas Silva de Andrade, who we always talk about is super slept on, Makwan Amirkhani,
super underrated.
Gabriel Santos, and now Culibao. And honestly,
like literally not a single can. Not a single can.
Right, and he has 2 finishes. His last fight was a little shaky against Santos, but no, I like Lerone Murphy. So I was just going to say
Santos is a dog, though. Santos is good.
Absolutely is. So like I was just going to add for Culibao, like this fight isn't his best showing, but it's because he's fighting a guy that is an absolute monster.
Oh, no, like, I think Lerone Murphy matters. I think it's, like, time to get excited about Lerone Murphy. I mean, let the cat out of the bag. This is 5 wins in a row now. I mean, the guy is on a hot streak. I mean, the only round that was really close was, like, round 1 I thought was decently close.
Yeah, agreed.
Just really that, what was it, like that elbow on the break from the clinch towards the end of the round kind of like was what really tilted it. Up until that point, it was kind of a 50-50 round. So Culibao was definitely scrapping, definitely competing. I don't want to make it sound like he got outclassed. And even in round 2, I gave it to Murphy as well. But, I mean, you could argue that Culibao won the damage battle in round 2, but whenever you spend the last 2 minutes of the round with Murphy on your back, kind of Aljamain Sterling style, it's going to be tough to give you that round.
Well, it was crazy because they both rocked each other. So, like, and then Murphy obviously wins the end of the round. So, like, I gave second round to him. First round I gave to Murphy just based on the clinch control, essentially against the fence, and the ability to limit Culibao's damage while also getting a little bit, even though it was snoozy. So, like, the way he was winning rounds wasn't necessarily, like, putting this great distance between them, right? So, going into round 3, I was like, oh, we got a pretty competitive fight on our hands here. Granted, Culibao was starting to take more damage. Like, that damage was building, and Murphy wasn't taking as much. Now, round 3, Murphy kind of started to put it all over Culibao.
Yeah, for sure. Then you get that weird kind of scrape body kick knockdown. Like, the best way I can describe it is like whenever the foot like kind of scrapes the cup, but it's still like a low blow. Like that same thing happened, but it like scraped the liver. Like it wasn't a like thudding or like smacking. It was like a graze. But it was like, have you ever like just barely tapped your fucking nutsack and it like hurts worse than if you hit it hard? Like, it was almost like one of those.
It was the toes too. So imagine if someone just did that with their hand and just like flicked it, right? But your liver essentially. But yeah, it was like his liver just got like a flick, and it was just enough where like it hit him, and you could see he was fine, and then he was just like, oh fuck, and just dropped down. Now for him to survive, I thought that was pretty impressive.
No, Culibao's a dog. Culibao's a very good fighter. Culibao's hard to finish, obviously.
And I almost thought he broke a rib from the way that he like continued to be tender and like treat that. Like I was very surprised.
It was a weird kick. It was a weird sequence. Also, like after, and then, Culibao was able to recover from that and then get back up to his feet. But then Lerone Murphy was able to take him down again, got some decent ground and pound off. Now, did you score a 10-8? I did not. 2 judges did. I assume that's the round they gave it 10-8.
Yes, yeah. I scored it 10-9. I did not think that was 10-8. 2 judges did go 10-8. I was very surprised by that. I wondered if maybe I was being too nice to Culibao for being such a dog about it or what. But, yeah, I didn't
Well, you know what
that.
I think it was? I think if you're watching it live, cage side, and, like, there's no slow-mo instant replay, you're probably like, oh, well, that's just like a knockdown, right? Like you don't really understand the nuance of the grazing kind of
because you don't have that high definition close up. You just kind of have to see it in real time because judges are not privy to replay or strike numbers. That is a thing about judging, is that you cannot watch replay or strike numbers or any of those like you have to watch the actual fight.
Yeah, for sure. So I think if you're there cage side watching it live, you're like, oh, that's a liver kick knockdown. Like probably scored a little more. But I agree. I didn't even really come close to giving it a 10-8 if we're being honest. It didn't even cross my mind. Um, so yeah, I scored at 30-27 Murphy. Two judges scored at 30-26 Murphy. One goes 30-27. Big win for Murphy. Like I said, I'm very similar to the Marcos Grant matchmaking. Like Coley Bow's like right on the edge of that top 15. I think he has been ranked, if I'm not mistaken, at one point.
I believe he was like 14 or
And
15.
yeah, and I mean, I think it's impossible to say Leroy Murphy doesn't deserve like a ranked guy. Like you could give him Ige, you could give him Barbosa, Caceres. I think those are all good fights, competitive fights, and I do mean competitive. I don't think he like guaranteed. He's probably not even favored to beat any of those guys. Do you think? Like, or maybe Caceres.
I would think he's favored over Barbosa. That age gap is massive, and like we know the stats on 10 plus
You're
years
right.
of age.
Yeah, probably. But I think that's one of those things where I think Barbosa would probably push him more. I mean, he's had some close fights. I don't know. I like Leroy Murphy. I mean, he showed us more of the grappling. Like I kind of viewed him as a striker. I think most people did, but I mean, those takedowns and the back control. I think he's really rounding out. I think that. I mean, the defense is there. Like, he never really got like clipped or hurt in this fight. And Colabal is a guy that can clip you and hurt you.
That's what I liked. I think was the striking defense we saw from Murphy because like Santos was tagging him up. That was a dogfight, as I recall it.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, from this performance, I like him for anyone 11 through 15. I think those are good fights, fun matchups. Now, if you start talking about Cater through Evloev, I think he starts struggling a lot with some of those guys. So he still needs to build a little bit. He just needs that little bit more. He's really close.
Yeah, and I feel like half these featherweights never fucking fight. Giga put out a tweet that he finally got a fight booked. Sadiq Yusuf fights like once every 18 months. Well, he's kind of annoying. Like he's not even a bad fighter. I just don't like his how he goes about his career.
Evlev's a pullout merchant. Bryce Mitchell pullout merchant.
Yeah, Bryce Mitchell. I could see Mitchell getting the Leroy Murphy fight. He was tweeting about how like literally give me anybody. I don't care if they're ranked or not. Like he was saying he just wants to fight and kind of make up for the Evloev pullout and like probably cash a check if we're being honest. So. Yeah, I mean, if you gave him Mitchell, I mean, that'd be an interesting matchup. I think he's definitely probably a better striker than Mitchell. Mitchell probably definitely a better grappler than him. So I don't know. I think that could be a good one. I said Sadiq Yusuf. I just want to see him fight like literally anybody with a pulse. So I mean, like, yeah, you could do that. I think like Caceres or Barbosa, or I think Ige put out a very similar tweet saying he wants to like sign and like book a fight soon. So, but Ige just fought an unranked guy, right? So they probably won't make him do that again.
I mean, if I was being fucked up, you could say the winner of Wood Feely on this card could fight Murphy, because those guys are really in that exact same range.
Am I tripping, or did Murphy already fight Wood? Am I tripping on that?
No, they haven't fought.
Oh, they had a fight booked, and it got canceled.
Right.
So I'm not crazy. I was remembering something there. Oh, Wood's the one that had to pull out. So yeah, you could do that.
Pull out merchants.
Yeah, man. You could guys pulling out. But yeah, I mean, I like Leroy Murphy a lot. I mean, he's up to 13-0-1. Beat a good guy like Culabao. I don't know. I think big things to come from Murphy, but we can keep it pushing, man. We got Perez Zion versus Jai Herbert. This is another one of those fights where if this isn't in England, this is definitely a prelim fight. Like Jai Herbert definitely, has the England hometown pop, which I'm not mad at it, but I didn't really understand the card placement on this one. Maybe I'm not as high on Zion as somebody else. I also didn't really understand why Zion was a big favorite. Now, as it plays out, I thought Zion, performed very well in this fight. But, like, coming into this one, I thought Herbert was a live dog. Also, I always forget how old Jai Herbert is, man. He's 35 years old.
I know. I always forget that, too.
Shit or get off the pot.
Well, and
he's like the Alonzo Metafield of fucking lightweight. He's, like, way older than he, like, looks.
Sometimes we see him put on these, like, banger performances. Black Country banger, hilarious. And then sometimes we see him just really not show up and want to grapple and not strike. And that was the Jai Herbert we got in this fight, unfortunately. Because I think if we get the Jai Herbert that fought against Topuria, we're talking about a whole different kind of fight, right? And I think Ziam was down to strike the whole time because Herbert was one that kept forcing it to the fence and kept forcing it to be the snoozy clinch that meant nothing, where he would get no damage. He'd fight for a takedown. He'd fight for it to lock his hands. And guess what? He would get his hands locked and he could do nothing with it until the third round, when finally what Leon Edwards had been yelling at him for 10 minutes, he finally tried to do, which was switch the grip and then switch to a single leg and then go back to the double, which, is a lot more effective. Still doesn't help him too much, in my opinion. But point being is that, like, both these guys are built the same. They both like to fight the same. They're long, tall, lanky strikers that have this nice reach and range. But neither guy, I say neither guy. Ziam was about that life. Jai Herbert didn't want to stand with him, which made it a super boring fight.
It was, and it sucked because I thought it was going to be like a heater. I had this one kind of circled a little bit. Like I said, I kind of talked shit on the card placement, but I did think it was going to be, an exciting fight, which it was not. Also, I forget if it was Bisping or Felder, but they were very right. They were like, he's not finishing these takedowns because guess what? He's not a wrestler. Like, I forget if it was Felder or Bisping, but obviously they're both striking heavy guys. But I thought it was kind of a pretty good point they made there. Like, yeah, you're right. Like, he doesn't have that skill set like Daniel Cormier doesn't need to be out there trying wheel kicks. So you know what I'm saying?
Well, that's
he was not what he does.
And he was rushing it too. Like, there were times where he would be setting it up right, and then he would try to rush through. Like, oh, I got my lock. Like, it's like, man, set up your feet. Like, set up your position. Like, make sure that if you're gonna get him here, don't push him to the fence if you want to get a trip, because the fence is gonna make it where you can't trip him. Like, and then he would try to trip, and he would just end up in the clinch.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong here, you being the wrestler out of the two of us, but from my, uneducated point of view, it seemed like he had really nice entries, but just zero finishing ability. He didn't have that bridge gap. He'd have a solid entry. He would time it well and get in there, and sometimes even grasp his hands together, and he would do everything right, the first step of the takedown, and then, he couldn't get himself to the finish, he couldn't. I actually didn't necessarily hate. He would time it well, and it would look good for a split second. But you're right, it would just kind of fizzle out and lose steam.
Well, he was he kept missing that change of direction, right? You gotta have your entry, your change of direction, and then your finish. And he kept missing change of direction. He kept trying to go entry to finish, and there was just there's nothing to get Ziam off balance. So Ziam was like, all right, well, yeah, you got me. You grabbed me, but guess what? You didn't do anything to get my balance shook.
You're right. That's exactly what it was. That's a great way of summing that up. Now, I thought every single round was close, but it was a snoozy kind of close.
Shitty close.
It was like a women's featherweight kind of close.
Herbert wouldn't allow Ziam to do anything offensive, but Herbert literally couldn't do anything to offensive at all. At least Ziam was defensively striking. Herbert literally couldn't get off strikes because he's working so hard to mitigate the strikes that Ziam could throw. It was the worst, man. I thought he kind of game planned himself out of the fight. It wasn't a winning strategy.
Yeah, no, that being said, I thought Ziam was really timing the counters well, when he could, when he wasn't being, clinched, what is called featherweight fucked. He just the women's featherweight snoozy cage clinch. Whenever they were striking, I thought Ziam was winning the striking battle. And
100%.
I edged out. I have a 30-27 Ziam, but I have the word close in every single round. But maybe I was holding it against Black Country Banger that he was the one making it snoozy, and just as a fan, I was I'm not rewarding that. But also he would engage in these 50-50 positions and then not necessarily win the 50-50 positions, hence the word 50-50 position. So I honestly, if anything, credit Ziam for the defense there, the takedown defense, and the ability that he was landing the harder strikes, timing the counters better. I thought he won the damage battle. There wasn't a ton of damage for either guy, but I thought he had more than Herbert. So I went 37 Ziam, and I said every round's close, but I gave every round to Ziam, and I'm not really mad at it.
I went 30-27 Ziam, and I think that's most likely the right scorecard. If you actually look at scorecards here, let's see, I believe they both gave him the second round. Yeah. So And then one judge doesn't give
Yeah.
any rounds, which I think is fine. Now, I think if you're going to give any rounds, probably the third, not really the second, but
See, I was gonna say the first. I think so. Like we're I think that makes a better point that he doesn't deserve any of them. Like
yeah, that's a great point, actually. If I'm saying maybe the
like
third and you're saying maybe the first, and judges are like maybe the second, it's like maybe none of them. Maybe we're reaching
yeah.
to give them a round.
Seriously though, seriously, man, and like on that note, I don't necessarily want to spend too much more time. Let me look up Zion real quick on old Tapology. Zion, he's 4-2 in the UFC. That's not horrible. The Terrence McKinney loss is aging poorly. A lot of his wins, are like who is Michael Figlak? Like that was in 2022, and like I don't even know if that guy's still signed.
Joel Alvarez is a good fight here, I think. Strikers.
Oh, you're talking about matchup wise moving forward. Yeah, yeah. I'm just saying, like, I don't know, like that. I'm just not high on Zion. He has a decent frame and he has some good like striking, like technical ability. But like, I don't know if he's a dog. I don't know like how powerful he is. He's definitely not that well rounded, and it's just like meh, just meh. That's why I didn't want him on the main card, especially this high, because it's just like I'm not saying he's a bad fighter, but as far as like getting me to like buy into his career and give a shit, like I'm kind of out. Like
both those guys are very middle of the road, and like for Herbert, the apple cart's about to get dropped in the middle of the cart path by the horse because man's old, horse about to die.
Yeah, and I think he's another one of those guys where like the gym he trains at, like he has the connections that got him into the UFC. Like he's trained with Leon Edwards. He has the Leon Edwards co-sign. Leon Edwards is in his corner. So like I think the UFC was like, they'll do that. They'll sign some of their champs boys or like some of their, their big name fighters boys.
Yeah, like Islam.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And yeah, or like fucking this Bannon girl that's Connor like co-signed.
Yeah.
Like that. She's 5-0. She definitely got in the UFC because Connor co-signed. Like that's real. Like I'm not hating. Like that's just seems to be the fact of the matter. But man, let's keep it pushing because you can debate the most intriguing. I'm not saying the most important but like the most intriguing. Like piqued my curiosity. Like I have to see what happens in this one. Andre Muniz versus Paul Craig at middleweight. I was like literally excited for this.
Also,
I really was just because
maybe one of the most fun 10 minutes that we saw in the whole card. Like, this was a very fun and active 10 minutes.
I was very shocked that Muniz was the minus 225 favorite.
Especially in Craig being the bigger man. I mean, he doesn't necessarily bigger in the octagon when it really came down to it. But, like...
I disagreed with that. I think Felder said that. I thought he looked pretty fucking big.
I thought they looked the same size. I didn't think Muniz looked bigger. They were insinuating Muniz looked, like, bigger. I was like, well, no, usually Muniz does look bigger, and he actually doesn't this time.
Yeah, Craig's big, dude. He's like 6'3", he's jacked. Like, I don't know. I wasn't necessarily seeing that either.
Their face-off right before the fight was, typical Paul Craig.
Yeah, Paul Craig face-offs are awesome. A lot of people crack the joke that his like face-offs are usually better than his fights, but I'll push back on that, man. Like, I kind of like Paul Craig. I mean, I'll say this, and this is kind of a backhanded compliment. Like, he's my favorite like guard puller. Like,
well, I also think
if I'm gonna watch anybody pull guard, I want it to be Paul Craig.
I think we're seeing a mentality switch out of him from the camp he's at now, too, which, I mean, let's dive into the fight, man. He's plus 190, fighting for a ranking in middleweight. Number 14, Andre Muniz, like you said, minus 225, which you and I both thought's Fugae's number from Vegas. And as it gets into it, well, we're going to look good by the end of this, I think. Now, Craig is ranked 9th in light heavyweight, I do believe, coming into this. So it is almost like he's fighting backwards coming into a weight down, which I didn't really understand that.
How they were talking about it. They're like, oh, he's trying to take Muniz's ranking. I was like, what do you mean he's ranked higher? Like, I just didn't understand the whole logic train from the money line. And this isn't hindsight 2020. I felt this way the whole way. My work schedule didn't allow me to get to the sports book, but I definitely would have bet this as a straight. Like this, and I love the heavyweight that was fighting Pogues. Like,
Parkin? I love Parkin. I put that in the group text Saturday morning.
I'm just kind of down on Pogues. Like, but once again, not hindsight 2020. Don't love the skill set, and so like
now Parkin's skill set, and we'll get to that breakdown. I am high on Parkin's skill set. He looked fucking good for heavyweight, but like you were saying,
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't know. I just didn't know. And then once again, like, oh, Muniz, he's a jiu-jitsu specialist. Like, oh, you think he's better at jiu-jitsu than Paul Craig? Like, I didn't understand the like logic chain. I don't understand like how you were like people were like arriving at that conclusion. Now, Paul Craig is older, 35 years old, like maybe, and like sometimes when an older fighter drops weight class, it's like a desperation move. But I think that's kind of a broad stroke, like if you just look at Paul Craig individually, I mean, I think what he gave, his wins are uber impressive. I mean, Paul Craig's wins are as legit as they come. He has some bad losses, but honestly, all of his bad losses were almost like he e-gays himself. Very rarely.
I was going to say, it's not like dudes are just outright beating him. It's like he beats himself more than he gets beat.
I agree with all those statements there. And Muniz got a lot of juice for like subbing Jacare, but it was like a washed Jacare. So I don't know. And generally, I like Muniz. Like I still like Muniz, but I just didn't understand necessarily like the narrative behind this one. We'll dive into the X's and O's.
Also, bro, Paul Craig has just fought a who's who. I mean, he's fought Minifield, he's fought Shogun twice, he's fought Jamal Hill, Krylov, Ozdemir, Walker, Nzechukwu, Minifield, Crute, Roundtree. Jesus Christ.
Like literally, zero cans.
And the Ozdemir decision loss was tough because if you recall that, he was trying to pull guard the entirety of the fight, and Ozdemir was just not having it, and I was like, this fucking sucks. Same shit with Johnny Walker, and Johnny Walker KO'd him.
Yeah.
Then Craig switches camps, switches weight classes, looks like desperation at the age of 35, paints a picture of desperation. So I see where Vegas drew that line. Now, for you and me's point, Paul Craig's a dangerous motherfucker. So, like, no matter what, dangerous is dangerous. And when dangerous gets more desperate, it gets more dangerous.
Yeah, and like we saw him, put more of an emphasis on top control instead of just pulling guard. And we also saw him with an emphasis on ground and pound. But all that being said, we've shined Paul Craig's wheels a lot here. I gave Andre Muniz round one. He landed that head kick. I thought like his boxing combos, like there was that one kind of like 3 or 4 punch flurry that kind of like they landed pretty crisp on Craig's chin, but Craig does have a chin.
Crazy good chin.
Especially standing.
Big asset
he gets
for
knocked
him.
out by ground and pound. Like, it's not like we're seeing him get sparked on the feet. And yeah, he has a good chin. But I thought Muniz won round one. He caught the kick and was able to get the takedown at the end of the round. And yeah, so, good round for Muniz. I didn't necessarily – Paul Craig – I guess I did like the fact that Paul Craig didn't pull guard in round one. Like, it kind of, like, demonstrated that that mindset, mentality switch, game plan switch up that we were alluding to. Now, it didn't necessarily win him the round, but it was nice to see him just not necessarily like, okay, I'm going to pull guard because it's not going my way.
And if you recall, at the very end of the round, he was in guard, but was actually working towards sweep there at the end. It was kind of lining it up. I mean, it looked like he was deciding in his head, like, honestly, I thought, like, fight IQ, man, like, yeah, Muniz gets the takedown. Craig kind of was really safe and was just feeling Muniz's guard, or his top pressure, it felt like, for that last minute. Almost like if I want to do this in the second round, how's that going to feel?
Yeah, that's actually, I kind of like the analysis there. Bringing it back to or, keeping it pushing to round two, man. Craig came out looking great. Like I said, he really had that attempt on, like, trying to get to the top. He got 2 takedowns. There was that bad headbutt. And I do say headbutt, not clash of heads.
That was on purpose.
Yeah, it was bad. It didn't necessarily look all that accidental.
Well, and Muniz almost caught Craig in a triangle in that first takedown, and that's how he pretty much got the reverse. Was Craig escaped out of it, and then Muniz was able to reverse that position. And then it looked like getting frustrated because he just couldn't get a pass, couldn't do anything. Headbutted him. They stand back up. Craig obviously gets a takedown. And then what I was surprised by, also I will say, shout out to the ref because he could almost, like, he gave Muniz, like, benefit of the doubt of, like, that was accidental, but also, like, hey, man, that didn't look very accidental because he was like...
And he took away the position. So I like that there was actually some kind of repercussion. He didn't go full point deduction, but like, hey, you lose the position there.
Yeah,
you fucked up.
And he was like heated. He was like, if you grab the fence, anything, like, that's gonna be a point. Like, no more of that. So I like that too. Now Craig did get that nice takedown right after the restart, and then, man, what I thought was crazy was typically you see Paul Craig go ground and pound, ground and pound. It's kind of sloppy. He's just kind of hunting for you to throw up an arm so he can work to a submission. Maybe you get a reversal, but he's still trying to get the submission off that reversal. Like he's trying to work submissions in transitions. Doesn't really care about top bottom. In this fight, he did care about top bottom. He was staying on top and raining down elbows.
Yes, like he fought like an MMA fighter, like he didn't necessarily fight like he's out there in a gi, which was refreshing. And like we said, like almost every fight Paul Craig loses is because he's like playing too much jiu-jitsu and he's not necessarily like fighting. And yeah, I love the elbows. I love the ground and pound. I love the top position. I love the control. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm not trying to like I said. I mean, I'm not trying to do hindsight 2020. That's kind of how I like saw this fight going, because like you said, Muniz got that failed triangle attempt. Like yeah, like Paul Craig, I don't think he's gonna fall for like a fucking like blue belt submission attempt. Like it's just like I don't know. Like I didn't think he was gonna just like get subbed. I also didn't necessarily think that Paul Craig was gonna sub Muniz. I just thought the jiu-jitsu would kind of nullify each other. And it would be like who won the other positions, which is kind of how this fight took place.
So would you have liked Craig by a TKO? TKO, sorry. Whew.
Honestly, yeah. Like, and I'm like once again not trying to like sound hindsight 2020. I kind of saw him winning by ground and pound.
Plus 1100.
God damn it! Where's that time machine?
Yeah, man. Hey, $5 on that is $55. That's pretty fat.
Yeah. My fucking work schedule sucked this week, but yeah, a great win for Paul Craig. So like that's what I'm saying. Like he's 9 at light heavyweight, beat 14. Everybody's like, oh well, he got Nunez's number 14. I guess you could view it that way. I think that's a little salty. I mean, I'm trying to see whose ranking maybe he should take. Like I feel it's not necessarily an easy answer.
Can I ask you some? I just want to run some odds by you real fast. These are all DraftKings, the numbers I'm going to say. So UFC official odds. Craig winning by submission, any submission, plus 350. That's already crazy good.
Bet.
Muniz by submission, plus 150. He was more than twice as likely to get a sub. That makes no sense.
Yeah, I don't understand where they're like. I mean, they were really loving Muniz's jiu-jitsu, but like it's like Paul Craig's one of the best jiu-jitsu guys in the whole promotion.
So, and then you have Muniz wins inside distance, minus 105. They expected him to finish Paul Craig. It was even odds. Paul Craig inside the distance, plus 300. As though he wins decisions.
Oh, that's the bet. That's the bet.
That's crazy.
Yeah, no, I just, I don't know. I think me and you, just had more respect for Paul Craig than Vegas did, just over, simplified version. Like, I think Vegas thought Craig was washed. And I don't think Paul Craig has shown us any indication that he's washed. Like I said, almost every fight he's lost has been like a fight IQ type of deal, not like my body doesn't have the juice anymore type of loss. You know what I mean?
The only thing that you could have gotten on Craig that was more valuable than TKO was a split decision. And betting
wild. I mean, I kind of get it, but that's also kind of wild. But yeah. I mean, I don't know. I just think Vegas got this one wrong. I mean, shout out, if you want to betting on Paul Craig, leave a comment below and just take your chest out a little bit.
Yeah, join the Craig Army, Braveheart, William Wallace, Paul Craig, Scotland.
So I mean, the cool thing is there's a million fun matchups you can do with them at middleweight. Like. I think Craig could beat Hermanson. I think Craig could beat Brunson. Above that, it gets a little iffy. But, I mean, hell, even Sean Strickland, if he gets him on the ground, I don't necessarily, almost all of these guys, if he gets them on the ground, I think he has a path to victory against, everybody. I won't go as far as to say Izzy, but, and maybe I'm still just hating on Duplessis, but, if Duplessis tries to take down Paul Craig, I mean, I think that's a bad night for Duplessis. I'm just sipping all.
Do you?
But I mean.
Okay, you think Hermanson Allen probably the best two matchups for Craig moving forward? Just fight style and I think Craig Hermanson is fun as fuck.
Because think about it, he's going to be bigger than both of those guys, and he's probably better at jiu-jitsu than both of those guys. Not probably, is. Yeah, no, I agree. And Hermanson would get him in the top 10. I think him moving to middleweight was the move.
Yeah.
He had already kind of risen and fallen in light heavyweights. He's fought, as we alluded to, everybody that matters in the division. So he was just kind of going to be where he was going to be at light heavy. But at middle, the possibilities are literally endless, and I think the good matchups for him are kind of endless. Like,
And I don't
I
think
mean,
he's taking
Cannonier,
on. I don't think he's taking on dudes that are as big or as powerful, which for Craig means a lot because his chin is already so good at light heavyweight that at middleweight it's going to be a weapon for him to be able to absorb these shots.
when even like Kelvin Gastelum, he's so much bigger than Kelvin Gastelum. Like, I mean, so much.
He's
Yeah,
bigger than
Brendan
Allen, bigger
Allen.
than Hermanson, bigger than Delidze. Brunson, I think he's a little bigger than Costa, same size. Strickland, he's a little bigger
I,
than same size.
I would kind of
Vittori.
like somebody needs to send Brunson packing. I'm sorry, his performances lately have been dog shit. His best days are behind him. He's not making another run.
And Craig
I think you
Brunson,
could.
good name value. Like you could easily throw that main card, like, and it's a banger of a fight. I think because I think Brunson's gonna chase him to the ground if he gets a takedown.
Yeah, because Brunson tries to wrestle guys. Like, good luck. You want to take Paul Craig to the ground? All right.
Right. Like
And
ask Jamal Hill about that.
does he have enough like juice in the tank to outstrike Paul Craig? Like, I'm just saying he's probably a better striker than Paul Craig, but I think Brunson actually is washed. Like, I view Brunson the way Vegas was viewing Craig. Like, I think those Craig could probably out athlete him, out just like have more juice in the tank. You know what I mean? Just like I don't know. I think there's a lot of high level winnable fights at middleweight for Paul Craig. I love the weight class change, and I'm kind of all in. Maybe he needs to fight Brendan Allen because I'm all in.
Because you're all in.
Yeah, and we can keep it pushing here before I just gargle on Paul Craig's nuts anymore. But we can we'll keep it pushing
Scottish
because
nuts.
Andre Fili plus 175, taking on Nathaniel Wood minus 205. Wood a real small featherweight at 5'6", but I mean so is Volkanovski. Not making that comparison, but like it's just like smaller guys can win at featherweight for sure.
I will say Wood does have that same speed attribute. Like he is fucking lightning fast.
Lightning quick, yeah, and honestly, good fight IQ. Yeah, puts it together really well. Yeah, there's a lot. Now that being said, round one was a war, and I thought this was a good matchup for him because I mean Philly does like to strike. He was much longer. It was going to be kind of like a quote unquote puzzle for Nathaniel Wood to get inside that range, but I mean, round one was an absolute war. They each knocked each other down. Philly's knockdown came at the start of the round. Then Wood got the knockdown, but Philly was kind of able to recover and honestly ended the round really strong. I still leaned Wood. His knockdown was a little more violent, and I like the ground and pound that he got on top and did after the knockdown.
I agree. I also feel
Honestly, though,
I feel like Philly didn't recover quite as well as Wood did.
yes, yeah, for sure. I think that's a fair point, and just kind of eye test wise. But honestly, if you gave that round to Philly, I don't think you're like a crazy person because Philly ended that round strong. So yeah, I mean, absolute war of a round. I thought this was great matchmaking. You kind of got two strikers against each other.
And to your point, I mean, ending the round strong, like, yeah, Philly came out in the second round and was feeling himself. That's funny. No pun intended there for real, but I mean, yeah, I felt like he was finding his distance, his range. The timing was really what he had found, though, because every time Wood was trying to enter, Philly was just dinging him. And it was almost the same strike that he had caught him with in the start, which is, I believe, just that short inside punch, and then he would follow it up with those. He was disguising it with hooks, and then every time Wood would try to enter, he'd hit him with that real short, quick inside shot.
Yeah, and then Wood was throwing like left hooks instead of jabs, and I think it was like he was so. Think about how fast you have to be to like have your left hook like beat a jab. Like I don't know against a taller guy. It's like honestly, like I don't think many coaches would like advise that. Like, hey,
No.
you're with a way shorter guy, lead with your hook. Like,
Yeah,
like,
the step in lead hook is like only Roy Jones Jr. is the only guy that's ever gotten away with that and made it like a weapon.
that was impressive as fuck. Like the speed is like a fucking snake, just like a fucking snake bite. But yeah, I mean, absolute war.
But in round two, that's whenever Wood stepped in, like we're talking about, to try to do that, and that's when Feely caught him with that sneaky jab and then kneed him in the head 3 or 4 times. I thought he was going to finish Wood.
Yes, me too. Also, real quick, Paul Craig got a performance of the night bonus, so we didn't really notice that before, but that's awesome. Was there no fight of the night? Oh, there was. Oh, I disagree with that. I thought this was fight of the night over the one that won it any day. A prelim fight won it. I thought this deserved fight of the night, like for sure. I even have it in my notes, and I
Oh
was after
wow!
watching the one
I
that did
cannot
win.
believe that got fight of the night.
Yeah, me neither. I thought this was a way more electric fight. But yeah, round
What
two,
is
man,
up
and
with the only 4 bonuses, man? Like dudes have been performing.
I don't love that. I also don't go fully the other end of the spectrum where the other. It seems like there's only two arguments, like oh, only give four, or everybody's on Twitter like give every bonus or every finish a bonus because like not all finishes are created equal.
Yeah.
So I just think you got to like use a little subjectivity, use a little
Like here's the way,
discretion.
like if I can put it on Twitter and it's like a hot clip because it's like such a highlight, you get a bonus. Like if I can circulate it
Yeah,
for money, you get money.
I agree. I agree. And if I can put this on a future, like to build a future fight for you, and like, yeah, I agree. I agree 1,000%. Which this fight had a lot of those moments. Yeah, round two, Feely comes out, gets the knockdown with a punch. Kind of, then he starts kneeing him in the head, and then he controlled the rest of the round. Wasn't looking so hot for Wood. I mean, great round two for Feely.
Yeah, it was. I mean, he ended the round in top position, 100% of Feely round, 19-19 after two. This was actually the first time in the night to this point I've written in my notes. And imagine this is the 13th fight of the night where I have it 10-9 and then 10-9 like opposite. So I have it 19-19. It's the first time in 13 fights.
Yeah, for sure. And Wood was doing enough to like, and recovered well enough to like not make it a 10-8. I think if you give Philly a 10-8, now nobody did, but if you did give Philly a 10-8 in round two, I don't think you're nuts. Like those knees were absolutely brutal, plus the control. But
I thought he was going to
Wood
finish
was
him.
able to make it. Me too. Now round three was close, man.
I thought it was the closest round of the fight. If you really think about like Feely obviously won round two. I thought Wood
Yeah,
did a pretty good job of winning round one. Round three was hard to score.
yeah, it was honestly like quality versus quantity. I thought Wood, had more volume, more activity, but I thought Philly, you could argue, won the damage battle. That those jabs were stiff and they were landing. Now they were landing less frequently than Wood's shots as the numbers dictate, but I mean he was doing some nice work there.
Yeah, and you could tell in the when the decisions get read here. I also score it to Wood, so we have a 29-28 for him. Every judge did as well. Same rounds, 1 and 3. You could tell Feely thought he won the third, which I don't think he's wrong in feeling that way.
No, I don't think, and that's a tough loss for Philly because Philly, I mean, he's been up and down. He has some good wins, some good losses. It's tough because he's a fun guy to watch fight. He never really is in snoozy fights. He's a good fighter. I don't think he's 22-10 even after the loss. That's a good record. It's not that salty, but he's 10-9 in the UFC, which is salty, plus a no contest. So it's essentially 50-50. Yeah, there's a lot of red on there. I mean, he has, and they're not always the best losses either. He has it's some good losses too. He has a loss to Michael Johnson at lightweight. He has a loss to Sadiq Yusuf, lost to Bryce Mitchell, but he also has the loss to Joe Anderson Brito. That's not great. And his only win since 2020 is against Bill Algeo, and it was a split decision. So, god damn it, I
It's
hate to
tough.
say it, but UFC roster watch alert.
Well, they
This is
make him
tough,
fight. They
but
make him fight dogs though too. Like at the back end of featherweight, like I think he's taking out anyone. But it's also like, man, if you can barely compete in the 20 to 30 range, what are we keeping you around for?
yeah, he's the loss to Calvin Cater, lost to Yair Rodriguez. Like, fuck, man, he's fought some. The lost to Max Holloway.
So what I
Like,
mean, they've made
god
Feely fight
damn,
only dogs.
that's so tough. But it's also like some people say, the UFC is for like contenders. Like, if you're not a contender, like if there's no scenario where you like win a belt, then like,
But also
why?
imagine if he
What are we
wins
doing?
2 out of those 7 fights we just named. Like his career is in a great spot. So what I'm saying is the UFC gives him opportunity. He has had no shortage of opportunities. So I'm not going to sit here and feel bad for him.
Yes, and I also think he's a good enough fighter where if he did go to like a PFL or a Bellator, like he could maybe go win $1 million in PFL. Like seriously, like he's a good fighter. He just can't beat like literally some of the best featherweights to ever walk planet Earth. Like, and I don't think there's necessarily any shame in that. But also, like maybe it's time to go in another direction.
Right, like pretty much at this point, he's only missing like losses to Ortega and Volkanovski and like shit like that.
Yeah,
So it's like fuck, man. Like, I, I feel for you. Like, that's a tough run. But also, like you just said, UFC is the best on earth. And if you're not that, what are you here for?
And he's only 33. Sometimes I'm not even saying that tongue in cheek or like backhanded compliment. Like, go win you a million PFL or like, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like,
Well, and he is kind of
I'm
getting
like legit.
he's getting to that point where he probably only has 3 more really strong years, and then it's like downhill slide hard, right? Especially at featherweight.
Yeah, yeah.
So like, yeah, go get you your money.
No, I agree, man. And great win for Nathaniel Wood. I mean, I do want to like touch briefly. I mean, he's at featherweight.
I like the
He just
Lerone
said
Murphy
that.
fight.
Yeah, and that fight's already been booked, so like you can't say it doesn't make sense because UFC already admitted it does make sense because they booked it. So it's even bigger now. I mean, that's probably like a fight night co-main or a fight night featured match. I mean,
If I'm the UFC, I maybe throw it on the Abu Dhabi card. You could open the main card
yeah,
with these two guys, and it's
yeah,
close enough to Europe where that's going to sell.
yeah. I agree, man. That's actually not a bad idea, and that's a fun fight. Who would you like in that?
Ooh. You know what? Oh my God. I'm gonna go Murphy. I think he's bigger and he has just enough speed to keep up. I think he loses the first round and then starts to catch Wood in the second, and then doesn't let off the gas in the third.
See, it's one of those things when you ask me that question, my knee jerk reaction is like I like Wood. But then if you ask me to like lay out the reasons why, it's like, well, fuck, Leron Murphy's kind of checking these boxes. like,
I know, yeah. Like
you know what I'm saying?
I think
Yeah.
he has more. I think the only box he doesn't check is speed. But I think speed fades,
Also,
and I think power can be overwhelming. Like size can overwhelm a lot of speed if you're closing that distance and you're like forcing him to grapple with you.
Leron Murphy's faster than Andre Feely, so it's like that gap isn't going to be like as noticeable, even if it's a slight edge.
And it's also like Murphy's a guy that damn near looks like a lightweight. Like he kind of has that Dustin Poirier, like, damn, you're shredded to be here. Like, how much weight are you cutting? And Wood came up from bantamweight. So it is like that story of like bigger featherweight versus smaller featherweight.
For sure, man. Also, during this fight, I have it in my notes because the camera panned to him. Hamzat was at the fights in London. I don't know about you. The reason or the excuse I've been reading about is that Hamzat hasn't had a fight booked is because of like quote unquote visa issues.
Oh yeah,
It's the second time.
he can't get to the U.S. He can get to England.
I don't understand that. Granted, I'm no like geopolitics expert, but England's our closest ally. Anybody that the U.S. is beefing with, England's beefing with. England's in NATO, so the whole Kadyrov little tie or whatever. Like, I don't England's part of NATO. I don't understand like anything that would bar you from coming to the U.S. And maybe I'm ignorant. Like, wouldn't that bar you from getting to England too? Like, I mean, I just don't understand. I mean, he's a Swedish citizen. He has a Swedish passport.
Yeah,
Like, I just
I
don't.
wonder if he has like ties within his camp or representation or management to like any Middle Eastern countries that obviously we don't like, but at this point, like I don't think that England holds as much like border security as us as far as like visas and what like you're coming in for to do and stuff like that. So I think we're more stringent. So I think like as much as they would honor like for the same reasons that we don't let Homs out here for whatever those may be, that they wouldn't either, but like they just don't have that same regulation.
But like also what changed? Like I don't understand. Like Hamzat was coming to the U.S. all the time.
Well, I
Not
mean,
that long ago. Like I remember specifically, whatever it was the last time these rumors were flying around, and then Chael goes to the PI, pulls out his iPhone, and is like, "Look who I found." And Hamzat was in Vegas. Well, these same rumors were swirling around about visa issues. Like when I say I don't get it, I'm not saying that tongue in cheek. Like I'm saying like I legitimately like that's kind of seems like some fugazi like internet rumors. Like I don't know how.
yeah, I wonder if that's just a story they're selling us to like, because how are we going to argue that that's true or not unless you can find him here in the United States?
Yeah, man. So I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting little point to bring up. But we'll keep it pushing to. Speaking of fugazi,
Oh
fugazi
yeah,
main event.
oh yeah.
Fugazi
Tell
main
me.
event.
Oh, you don't think the Molly McCann deserved to be co-main, Dom? Why not?
She has a 500 record, sir. Yeah, I mean, we got, and then, no, actually, so Meatball has a 500 record in the UFC, which is pretty ass. Stoliarenko has a 500 record, just like, period, in the sentence there. Like, I think Stoliarenko's 10-8-2. So, I mean, that's 500 if you ask me. So, like, And yeah, so I mean, I mean, obviously they tried to put asses in the seats with Meatball. I think I'll be real, and I thought this the whole time. I think the UFC like overvalues Meatballs, like value Meatballs like star power. It's like
Right, but
because she's always with Patty. It's like, oh,
oh,
Meatball gets a good big pop, or are they really cheering for Patty? And it's like, okay, Meatball's on the stage at the same time, so like, I guess these cheers are like I don't know. It's like if you put like a bench NBA player on the stage with LeBron, and the crowd goes crazy, like, hey, they're cheering for LeBron, not the bench guy. Like, I just,
that's exactly what's happening though. Like,
yeah, it's weird.
all right, but like, I guess my point is like, do they overvalue Patty? I don't know if they overvalue him because like he sells cards that, or has sold cards in London that like had no names on them. So the UFC like got to reap all this money. So I guess as a favor to him, like, yeah, we'll keep Molly in a couple cards where she doesn't belong. Like favor to you, Patty.
I guess. I don't know. It didn't make a lot of sense to me. Or, like, it made sense when Meatball was fighting Aaron Blanchfield or Tyler Santos or some of these other bigger names that she's fought. But McCann Stolyarenko? Co-main?
And listen,
Fuck outta here.
and listen, the last time Stolyarenko fought, like I said, she opened the card whenever we watched her. A 14 fight card. She opened the card, and now she's second to last.
Jerk the curtain. No, yeah, I did. I thought this was a miss from like a matchmaking perspective. I thought it was a miss from a card placement perspective. And no, granted, I mean, thank God we didn't get a boring fight. It kind of proved to be a little bit exciting, you know. So I mean, at least we had that going for us.
I guess
yeah, McCann
like,
minus 210 favorite, which I don't necessarily even disagree with because I'm not that high on Stolyarenko. Plus 180 in the women's flyweight division.
I think that tells you everything you need to know about it, right? Is that Stolyarenko, who we absolutely don't believe in, for reasons that we just talked about, is plus 180, and it's like Molly McCann, who we just talked about. Are you guys like? Should she even be here? Is a favorite. So imagine like the favors they're doing this girl to keep her in that position of being a favorite. You know what I'm saying? Like they're literally doing Molly McCann favors here. You would think.
Hold on, this is wild. Stolyarenko's last fight, that curtain jerker you were alluding to, was against Chelsea Chandler. She a track star. That Chelsea Chandler.
I know.
At featherweight.
I know.
She got finished in the first round to somebody who we said is basically not UFC caliber. Now she drops 2 weight classes to take on Molly McCann. Also, we need to keep in mind if Stolyarenko ever fights again, bet the under. All of her fights, like her last 3 fights, were ended in the first round.
Yeah, and she actually did say that. She did say like to like try and sell herself. I will say her mic time was good because she was like, her post fight I should say was good because she was like, I'm exciting fighter, like I'm here at flyweight to finish bitches, like what's up. Good mic time.
No, for sure. No, she did good, and we're alluding to the mic time because she does get the win. There's not a ton of X's and O's to get into because this fight only lasts 1 minute and 55 seconds. Stolyarenko got the takedown, immediately took the back, which was slick. I thought that was pretty good.
It was slick, but it was like, okay, girl who's really good at jiu-jitsu, girl who like literally sucks ass at anything grappling. What do we think was going to happen?
True that. Then transitions to the mount. Gets the arm bar at 1 minute and 55 seconds, as I alluded to. Now, there's this guy on Twitter. I almost sent you the tweet in a DM, but I just figured I'd talk about it on the pod. I wish I could shout out the account, though, because it was like a super informative, like really kind of helpful tweet. There's been floating around MMA Twitter. There's this like jiu-jitsu guy who like broke down, like it wasn't even like a clip. He just had 2 pictures, like 2 still frame pictures. And when Stolyarenko went for the armbar, like, by jiu-jitsu standards, it was like a dog shit attempt that should never have worked because of the position they were in. Meatball literally gave this. Meatball tried to like do this wall walk, and she like literally like gave Stolyarenko the armbar.
Yeah, it made no sense. I could have like, because what happened, all she had to do, here I can paint this, right? So literally what Meatball needs to do is if an armbar looks like this, right? Like this is your arm, these are your legs. You need to get your legs like this, where they're over your leg or next to it, or over your arm or next to it, right? So if you think about it, if my arm is out, but I get my legs up, well, then all of a sudden my weight is over my arm, so I can start to press my like body down to essentially use my like legs and base to defend from being knocked off balance to my back, and to keep my shoulder strong and my elbow posted so that you can't drag it for a straight arm, right? So essentially you're posting your elbow to the mat by getting your legs back, changing the weight, changing the direction. She does the opposite and
Yes.
literally goes into the perpendicular pose to get her arm ripped off.
Yeah, which man, Meatball's grappling is so bad. And like I don't know, bro. We've been off board on the Meatball train for a while now. I mean, the highlight, her like whole career defining moment, and it wouldn't even have been career defining if it wasn't on a Patty card, was whenever she, knocked out Luana Carolina, who we both think is not really UFC caliber. Before that, she beat Jeon Kim, who's once again not really UFC caliber. Hannah Goldie, her win after that, I don't believe is in the UFC anymore. She's like
Instagram Goldie.
yeah, she's literally a professional ass pick poster.
Astagram.
So it's
She's on Astagram.
yeah, and then I mean the loss to Blanchfield, nobody's holding against you, but yeah, dude, I just don't know what we're supposed to do with this. I mean, Meatball is now 6-5 in the UFC. The girl she just lost to is like 2-5 in the UFC, I believe, is Stoliarenko. So this was just a big nothing burger for me. Should not have been the co-main. I mean, on paper goes down as like a good win for Stoliarenko, but it's literally her second win in the UFC, and she was gifted not even she wasn't gifted the position, but she was gifted the submission. Like anybody that like literally that like everybody on Twitter that knows anything about jiu-jitsu was like, yeah, like Meatball like did more to finish herself than Stoliarenko did.
Yeah, because if you think about it, like Stoliarenko, yeah, man, like I'm running it back in my head, like Stoliarenko's like upside down, and like she's the one that needs to kick her legs over to get her back to the ground so she can crank, elbow invert, so joint facing upward essentially is what she needs. Because really facing it to the ground, you can't get as much crank. Obviously, it makes sense, right? The ground's going to stop it. So you'd think she's trying to kick Molly with her legs. Instead, Molly's just doing whole ass somersaults into the armbar. Like she's literally like, I'm rolling into it. It was the craziest shit, man. I'm glad you brought that up because I thought about that after it happened. Because when she originally got caught, I was like, oh, damn, I was slick. And then I was like, wait, all she had to do was walk the other way instead of rolling her hips. Or like, she tried to fling her hips and do all this extra shit. She just needed to walk her hips 90 degrees to the left, and she would have, like, covered and been fine.
And been on top, reverse position.
Yeah, they would have been north-south. They would have been north-south, but yeah.
Like, essentially, like, fumbled the position. Like
by rushing the submission, and then Molly was like dumb enough to fly in with it. It was like, oh, we're rushing to this spot, like I gotta beat you to this next spot, and it's like, no, you're beating her, no. Like she was an idiot.
So yeah, I don't know. If both of these fighters were on UFC roster watch, I wouldn't lose any sleep personally. But let's keep it pushing this main event, because from going from a fight that doesn't matter at all to a fight that matters a fuck ton in the heavyweight division. We got the return of Tommy Aspinall, minus 400, number 5th ranked heavyweight in the world, coming off of was an ACL tear, right? I mean, it was a bad knee injury in the Curtis Blades fight. It was over before it began.
I'll tell you, he might be the next fight poster I get.
I like Aspinall a lot. And there's this kind of metric. It's not really, you can't really quantify it. But remember earlier I talked about, like, what was I talking about? Fares Zion. Like, he sucks at getting me to care about his career. Like, I forgot, like, how much I liked Aspinall. Like, during the walkout, like, I had a big fucking smile on my face. I was fucking cheesing. Like,
his new ink is sick.
Oh, just everything about it. I mean, I don't know, bro. I was like happy to be like spending my Saturday night watching an Aspinall fight.
Does he
not? I like, legitimately was.
Does he not kind of have that like air of like greatness about him whenever he walks out? Like he seems like confidently calm, if that makes sense. Like he's like like he's like enjoying himself, but the minute he like steps in there, he's still like enjoying himself. And then they tap gloves, and all of a sudden like it changes, and you see him come out there and he's just a monster, man. Like his technique is so crisp.
So well rounded and so athletic. You're taking on Marcin Tybura plus 270 dog, 10th ranked heavyweight. And, I don't want to say full blown eat shit because I did not pick Tybura. But, on our last episode, I made a few comments like Tybura does like to play spoiler. And Aspinall is coming off a very severe injury and hasn't fought in over a year. So I thought like those two factors kind of combined was going to potentially make this a little interesting. It did not.
I thought minus 400 was wild. I thought like minus 210 should have been the number, if I'm being honest. Like
that's how I felt.
Because he's
like,
coming back from an ACL tear. Like that's a big deal.
I agree. Perfect way to sum it up. Like I wasn't going to pick Tybura. I didn't think Aspinall was like washed.
It's not a disbelief in Aspinall. It's a belief in catastrophic injuries being catastrophic.
Yeah. Exactly, and a little ring rust, and Tybura. I don't think Tybura is like a slouch. Like he's no can, and now he is 37 years old, but as a heavyweight, that's not that old. And I mean, this was a hot knife through butter, bro. There's not shit to break down. I mean, it was one-way traffic.
Too fast, too powerful, too much of everything. I mean, the jab down the middle KO'd Tybura.
Has that Izzy always like to talk about being a sniper and accuracy and timing over power? Because when you say heavyweight and you say power, like you kind of get this like sloppy kind of connotation in your head. But like Aspinall is so precise.
He's like a boxer.
Yeah, but he's also like jiu-jitsu's his first art.
I know it.
He's a jiu-jitsu
It's crazy.
guy.
His dad runs a jiu-jitsu academy. Like he had a black belt when he was 13 because he started when he was 5.
Yeah, no, and then to have like debatably the crispiest boxing in the division. I guess you could argue Cyril Gane if you want to, but
learned how to box at Tyson Fury's camp. Like, I mean, like literally is in the best of both worlds. It's so unreal.
Also, a little bit something to note: the heaviest he's ever came into a fight. I imagine some of that has to do with the knee injury. I'm sure he packed on a few lbs. And at heavyweight, there's no reason to really like get those lbs off if your cardio's still there. So he came in at 258. He used to fight at what, like 240 or something?
Yeah, like 240, 245. Yeah. Now probably better for him honestly because he still looked healthy with the 13 pounds extra.
Exactly. And if he's going to be fighting the Pavloviches of the world, or the John Joneses of the world, he's going to need the size for sure. So not mad at that. I mean, it was a straight right piss missile that just, put Tybura down. And that's what was crazy. Like when you think of like a heavyweight landing a right hand, like in your head, you probably have some like image of some like winging overhand right. Like, no, it was just a straight right down the pipe. Almost like a Sean Strickland looking type of punch, but it just folded Tybura. Tybura has a chin too.
I know.
So it's not like he folded some chinny guy or he landed some fluky shot or he didn't even really time a counter, I don't believe. He just threw a straight right, and that's all he needed to do.
God, he's 6'5". That's so crazy. Man, you know what's wild is I listened to Luke Thomas. Oh, I have a tremendous stat we can talk about here that accords with this. Goes in accordance with this. Luke Thomas, I was listening to Morning Combat, right? And they were talking about the lead into this fight. And he was listing off Aspinall's stats. Every single stat category he has, like advanced metric, is top 5 in the weight class. And then his striking metrics are like far and away number 1 in almost everything. In strikes per minute landed, strikes per minute attempted, strike accuracy, and his strike defense. He gets hit a little bit, but that's because he's in so many active trades, right? So
yeah, because he's being active.
So check this out. Here's his percentage accuracy in all of his UFC fights. Against Jake Collier, 100%, didn't miss a punch or a kick. Alan Boudreaux, 65.38. Andrei Arlovsky, 64%. Who that's impressive because Arlovsky, veteran, knows actually how to move, right? Sergey Spivak, 61.54%. Volkov, 70%. Blades, 60% if you count it. Doesn't really count, right? Because 15 seconds. And then Tybura, this fight, 72.22%. The guy is the most accurate striker in the heavyweight division by like 15%. Like, it's not even close. It's so far apart.
When if you look at his record, I just did a little diving here. So he has technically 3 losses. 2 of those are outside of the UFC. But one of those losses is like the fluky Curtis Blades injury. And it wasn't like a Brian Ortega injury where it was like caused, like that was fluky. Like it literally was fluky. And his other loss was, loss in air quotes, was to some guy named Perobiek because of an illegal 12-6 elbow. So like a John Jones type of situation. And then his only actual loss was a heel hook back in 2015.
His 4th fight ever.
Yeah. So, I mean, does he have 3 losses? I mean, I'll leave it to you to decide, but not really. I mean,
for all intents and purposes,
debatably have called you can call the Blades a no contest if you ask me.
Same with the 12-6 elbows that were illegal. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like
exactly.
We could be talking about he has 1 loss that was his 4th fight in his career, and he's now 16 fights in. Like, for all intents and purposes, the guy is undefeated as far as the UFC should be concerned.
Exactly. Could not agree more. And he's already been in there, like I said, called fluky. He's been in there with Curtis Blades. He's been in there with Volkov.
And he finishes
he's been in there
everyone.
With Spivak.
He doesn't have a decision.
He's been there with Arlovsky. Like, he doesn't really have many cans. I mean, Bordeaux's a can, but, like, on the can scale, he's a good can. Like, he's a dangerous can.
No, D-Mac.
And then,
I'm saying in all of his fights ever,
oh, yeah.
I'm saying in all of his fights ever, he doesn't have a decision. He's never gone to decision ever in his career.
Oh, no. I know that 100% finish rate. I got it here in my notes. I was just talking about, like, his strength of schedule.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
It's not like he's getting the Patty Pimblett, like, can treatment.
Oh, no. Fighting dogs and finishing them.
Yeah, for sure, dude. Now, I'm not going to lie. I didn't like the call-out. I actually kind of hated it, and I have a reason why. He called for the winner of Gane versus Spivak, which I'll be real, I didn't even know that was booked. Like, why is that booked? Like, I don't understand what's happened in the heavyweight matchmaking. Like, why is that booked?
Well, why would he run back the fight with Spivak?
Winner?
I thought it was Gane Volkov that was booked.
Maybe he fumbled the verbiage on the mic. He said Spivak's name. I don't know. Yeah, let's look at this real quick.
I'm sorry. I thought it was Pavlovich Gane that was booked.
That would make a lot more sense because I wanted to see it. No, it's Spivak. Spivak's booked against Gane. I'm on Tapology right now.
Yeah, September 2nd. I see
September. Like, why is that fight made? Like, what kind of matchmaking is that?
Bro,
I don't know.
Especially when Pavlovich is sitting there with no fight. He has no fight booked.
That's why I was so mad at the call-out. And Pavlovich is ranked 1. Like, why?
You know what? I don't hate him running it back with Blades and avenging that.
Not either.
Huh?
He didn't call for that either. He called for the winner of Gane Spivak. That's what I'm saying. There's multiple other directions he could have gone. No pun intended. And like I just don't understand what he gains from fighting the winner of Gane Spivak. And
essentially, he wants Gane. That's what he's saying.
Yeah, like matchup wise, like he wants that fight. Like he thinks he can. I mean, I don't blame him. I'd rather fight Gane than Pavlovich too. Like, especially because you said Aspinall will occasionally get his chin touched. Like, Pavlovich can spark you out.
Actually, I'm actually going to push back now that we talked about it because what he's doing is he's calling for a fight against whoever's ranked number 2. Because if Spivak wins that, Spivak gets number 2.
Hey, you know what's better than 2?
1. Guess who doesn't have a fight booked? 1. Well, maybe there's a reason he's not calling for him, bro. Like, maybe that's a guy where he's like, I don't want to fight Piss Missile Pavlovich. And that should be his nickname.
No, you're not wrong. Like, I think Gane is a more winnable fight, especially because Gane's dog shit grappling. I bet Aspinall was just on his couch, icing his knee, just like whenever John Jones choked out Gane in like 12 seconds or whatever it was. I bet he was just stroking it. He was just like, oh, what I would do to Gane. Like, he just... I bet he was just like, oh, that's his level of grappling, and I've been grappling since I was like 2.5 years old. Like I don't know. I bet he was just 6 to midnight when he was watching Jones choke him out. I bet because you're right. Matchup wise, Gane, and he can maybe. Or you think he could maybe in his mind like not even have to fight Pavlovich? Like, he beats Gane. He has more hype. He has a bigger name than Pavlovich. He gets the title shot. He's been throwing John Jones's name out there a little bit. maybe he thinks he can like get to the belt without facing Pavlovich, which from like a strategy kind of like that's kind of like a boxer's career. He hangs out with boxers. He's kind of like plotting his path to a belt almost like a boxer would, which
he's also kind of, you know what else he's doing, I think, here? I think that, let's just say John Jones beats Stipe, because then Stipe retires for sure, and they don't run it back. Now, if Stipe wins that, they obviously are going to run it back. Now, that being said, Pavlovich gets the next shot at John Jones, I think, right? So...
Maybe not, though. No, see, I'll push back there, because Pavlovich is doing himself no favors. I follow Pavlovich on Instagram. He lives in Florida, which I thought he lived in Russia. He lives in Florida, and he just like goes to the beach and shadow boxes and posts it on Instagram every day. He doesn't call anybody out. He dresses like an asshole. And bro, he's just like not marketable. I think he has like less Instagram followers than like almost like everybody in the heavyweight division. Like Pavlovich is kind of like Sandhagen in his own career. Like I think Aspinall sees a path to the belt without even having to fight Pavlovich, just off like, hey, I'm going to sell more pay-per-views than Pavlovich. I'm going to, I do more interviews than Pavlovich. I do more media than Pavlovich.
That was my overarching point, though, was that he's doing, like, he knows that whatever he does, he should do whatever he can do to just not fight Pavlovich, because he doesn't necessarily have to. The only reason he would ever have to fight Pavlovich is if Pavlovich gets the belt before him. Or if Pavlovich is the clear-cut number one. There's the only two ways.
There's maybe a scenario where he gets the belt and then defends against Pavlovich.
That's what I mean.
Dude, when's the last time you've been, like, actually excited for a heavyweight main event? Because, like, don't get me wrong. I was excited for Jones gone, but, like, only because I wanted to see Jones fight. Not because I thought the fight was going to be awesome. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, it'd be cool to see heavyweights that are both under the age of 35 fight for the belt. Because we fucking haven't in 8 years.
So sick, bro. Like, and that's definitely a main event. That's like a big time pay per view. Like, they'd probably do it at the O2, like, or Abu Dhabi maybe, or like I don't know, but like,
where would they do that? Probably the they wouldn't give him home.
I think they would. I don't think the UFC wants Pavlovich as their champ because he sucks at media. He's not marketable.
It's all about who's champ.
Sell pay-per-views.
It's all about who's champ first. If Pavlovich is champ first, they're going to Vegas. If Aspinall's champ first, they're going to London.
Yeah, or they could even do Pavlovich somewhere in Florida. Like I said, Pavlovich like lives and trains in Florida. He's essentially a Floridian.
Also crazy that John Jones is the champ. So crazy that we're just talking about like these guys are the champions of the division, lying in wait. You know what I mean?
Well, that's John Jones' fault. All he does is talk about retiring.
I mean, I could easily see him retiring if he beats Stipe here. Like, why wouldn't he?
He said he would. I'm gonna believe him. Like that's what he said. That's not my idea.
And like I was essentially saying with Aspinall, like, why do you don't have to fight Piss Missile Pavlovich, especially when you're fucking 38, gone through all these wars, and then you'll have beaten Stipe. Like, what more do you have to do? You don't have to fight Piss Missile Pavlovich.
Actually, you know what a scenario we haven't laid out yet. He can fight Pavlovich for the vacant title because think about it. John Jones said if he beats Stipe, he's retiring. I'm gonna take him at his word.
Oh, so then it's Pavlovich 1 and 2 would obviously just fight. Yeah, I see.
For the vacant title. Yeah, and I mean, if Stipe loses, he could retire, and if he doesn't retire, his next fight's not going to be for a belt, but he's going to retire. I think he probably retires win or lose, right? Like Stipe's not going to defend that belt 2 or 3 times. Like there's no way in fuck. Like, and there's also no way in fuck he's beating Jones. I'm sorry. Like call me a mark, a hater, whatever. That's not happening. So Jones beats Stipe. They both retire, and then the title's vacant, and they could do like him and Pavlovich for the vacant title. Yeah, wherever the fuck they chose to do it. I think that's actually a pretty likely scenario because I think Jones, like I might bet the actual house that Jones beats Stipe. Like I'm like.
Real quick before we cap it off here, just one last heavyweight question: who does Jailton Almeida fight next? Because he's also on this level, I think.
Oh yeah, that's funny that you said that. Last night after this fight was over, I got on my laptop and I went to the rankings and I was just kind of, looking around, theorizing, and Jailton Almeida is the name that stood out. No, I'll say Spivak could realistically beat Gon because Gon's grappling is so dog shit and Spivak's a grappler. So like that scenario exists in which then you could do probably what Spivak Almeida for like a quarterfinals match essentially. Like
Right. I could see him being fucked up and doing Almeida to Ivasa.
yeah, I could see the two of us feeding. I thought the exact same thing to get him in the top five. Also, I mean, Blades would be pretty fucking sick, like matchup
That's
wise.
a really fun fight. Really fun
That's like,
fight.
yeah, that's pretty sick. I don't think you can kind of go wrong with Almeida. I don't want to see Almeida fight Volkov.
I'm just kind of
Already,
on Volkov.
yeah, I'm out on Volkov Apex Fight Night main events. The heavyweight Sean Strickland, just the fucking the empty chairs number one favorite fighter.
Oh my god.
Yeah. No, I feel you. I am not trying to watch it. If we ever have another Beefy Boys episode with the title Volkov in the title, I'm gonna be kind of salty about it personally. Like because there's been too many, bro. We've done like what 5 or 6 Volkov main events in the Beefy Boy era, like none of which have been all that exciting, like are fun to watch, or had any fans in attendance, or sold any pay-per-views, or just like why? What are we doing here?
Like,
So
why
yeah,
are
no,
we
I agree with
here?
that. No, for sure, bro. But yeah, that wraps up the main card portion. Please like and subscribe. Check out some of our YouTube shorts. They've been doing pretty good numbers. Shout out to Michael, the third Beefy Boy out there, editing those, chopping those up. I'm pretty stoked on those. Follow us on Twitter at Beefy Breakdown. Probably the best way to like engage with us. On Fight Night, we like to be on Twitter. Firing off takes and yeah, leave a comment if you want any money on this card. We unfortunately did not, but yeah, we'll be right back in a little bit for the